In light of current events, we stand with all Black Lives Matter protesters. Below are some donation and participation links. We stand against racism and encourage participation in the Black Lives Matter cause. The resources and links to charities are below. Black Lives Matter.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? Welcome to Queer Opinions. Queer Opinions.
The podcast.
Wow.
Love, relationships, hot topics,
LGBTQ+.
Gay culture.
Scott McGoldrick with Claire.
With Claire.
And Mel.
and Mel.
Wow. It's just love.
It's just love.
It's just love. It's just love.
Hi guys, welcome to Queer Opinions, a brand new episode. I'm your host Scott McGoldrick and I'm joined by my beautifully talented co-hosts Mel and Claire. This is episode 3 now and I feel as though we have focused on hot topics like news stories and gave our opinions on that, but I really want listeners to get to know us personally. So I came up with a little question. I hope you're okay to answer. In order to become old and wise, you must first be young and stupid. What's the cliff notes to your life up at this point? Like, if you were to write an autobiography, what would your chapters be, surrounded on? Because I feel as though I know straight away when I think about my life, I know the certain points that changed my life forever.
So I was really tall for my age and stuff, so I used to get a lot of comments like, oh, you're a man, or like kind of slurs that you would use for transgender people and stuff. So I was bullied quite a bit, and I think that made me quite an anxious person, which I still am. And I remember getting called down to guidance and getting told off my guidance teacher at 13 that everyone knew that I was gay, and if I didn't tell my mum and dad, that the school would basically set up a meeting with them and tell them. So, I wasn't comfortable with that, obviously.
Absolutely horrifying that people in a position of power would do that. Like, it's fucking unbelievably wrong. Wow.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. So I was only 13 and like it was kind of once every couple of months or so I would get dragged into guidance and get told, have you told them yet, or are we going to have to set up this meeting? So when I was 13, I basically told my mum and dad. My mum had went into my bedroom and found a diary and had read some of it, and she came down and she says, I found that book that was in your room. And I thought, oh god, she knows that I'm gay. So I just said to her, Mum, I'm gay. And she was like, what? She hadn't actually read that part of the book. So she got a double shock. So she just read all these other secrets and then she found out I was gay. And they didn't really react very well to it. So that was a bit of a shit show for a few years. And then came the whole kind of shaming me of like basically if anyone gay came on TV, it was like a kind of shaming me of it and saying negative things. So that lasted quite a while. But I promise it's not all doom and gloom. And then like after high school and stuff, I met my girlfriend, and that was at university. So joined like an LGBT group at university and started kind of coming into myself a little bit more. And while I was at uni, I studied German and Italian,
Oh my God.
and then I changed to English. So kind of linguistic-y things and like English lit and all that sort of stuff. And I learned quite a lot about.
You could have been a spy.
Like,
Oh my god.
That's what that was like.
Maybe she is.
Maybe.
Maybe.
These are not the first people. That's me. I get that a lot.
You give off spy vibes.
Like, I'm not going to paint my parents as bad people. Like, they accept it now, but they certainly didn't then, and it is a relief. But we do have a good relationship now. Particularly right now that I'm kind of trying to get comfortable with is being assertive with my parents and not just doing what I think that they want me to do, and actually challenging them when they have different beliefs as to the way I want to live my life. And it is really difficult, but it's getting easier and easier. And I think it is the most liberating thing to be true to yourself.
No one really talks about that. Like, I've not heard many people talk about that. The courage it takes to basically speak up to your parents if they do have a different opinion from yours, like a different belief or whatever. Because I've been fortunate enough to have parents who didn't care what I was or whatever as long as I was happy. But I'm always relieved about that in a way, because I couldn't imagine having to wake up and deal with certain things that you've had to deal with. I mean, there was a moment where my dad must have said something when I was a kid. I must have been about 5, 6. And my mum, oh,
Are you back?
right. Sorry, technical difficulty.
Yes,
My mum always wanted a girl. That she was very open about that. She already had named it Kimberly and stuff. And I think when she had me, unfortunately, she also got postnatal depression, so she couldn't pick me up for a while. But my dad was the complete opposite. He was obsessed with me. Like, I've always been like a daddy's boy in that sense. He's always had my back. But my mum was very feeding into the whole, like, if I wanted to play with Barbies, if I wanted to do certain female things that are considered female, she would feed into that. She enjoyed that. And my dad was at work one night, and she was bringing out her high heels, and she said, Scott, come and try on my high heels and stuff, which is so strange for a mum to say to like her 5, 6-year-old. And I was like, okay, but in my head I was like, oh yeah, I get to try on the high heels.
Oh yeah.
As I was putting them on in the hall, my dad walked in the door from work, and he was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I couldn't exactly, I never had enough time to reply. I was like, well, my mum just told me about it. And they went into the living room, and I heard them shouting for like 5 minutes, like, what the fuck are you doing, letting him wear your high heels, blah blah. And that was a moment in my life where I knew, okay, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. Which is so strange, because now my dad, since I came out, my dad is like, why are you not taking any makeup pictures and stuff? What's happened to your crazy photos? Why are you not uploading any of your YouTube videos, your makeup videos and stuff? He's like forcing me basically to upload makeup stuff and that. He wants to see me do all that, which is so strange. My dad was a very like macho man back then. He's always been like that. He's always had the same moustache since I have been born. He's never like porntash. But I remember it was so strange because it was so hypocritical, because they got me a pram, and I was like 6 or I don't know, I was so young, and they got me like a fucking a full blown pram to play with, like a mum, and I'm like, when I look back, I'm like, well, I'm not allowed to wear high heels, but I'm allowed to fucking roll about a pram.
Maybe this was please breed for us. We want grandbabies.
I've always thought I don't want kids at all, but then another part of me is like, I mean, maybe if it happens one day when I'm like, I'm trying to time it, like 36 maybe.
That's something I hadn't actually thought about. Was like, I guess as like in a gay relationship or just a non-hetero relationship, like you actively do very much have to plan for children. Like my eldest was unplanned but very welcome, but that wouldn't happen. Like you would have to thoroughly plan for
the way to do it, and like
try
and get
which almost makes that's a good argument for wanted children.
You know, with transgender people, there's the current law is that you have to live, I think it's is it a year or maybe 2 years as your kind of gender.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting when you think about it in terms of like people getting married or people having children. Surely, if, you know, that sort of thing, you should also have to live a certain amount of time to prove that you can do this thing.
I'm trying to think of, like, I know, do you know, the scary thing is, I think this is why I'm so negative and stuff today. Well, I try and be positive, but I am just very negative Nancy. I think it's because most of my memories that shaped me has to do with death. Like, the first memory I can really remember is when I was a kid, I used to stay with my dad's mum, like, every weekend. I was took on a Friday and got home on a Sunday. And then she died, which, I don't know if I've ever told this story before. This weird spiritual thing happened that I didn't know about until, like, a few years ago my dad told me. When I was a kid, when my gran died, my dad came to me and told me, like, so you won't be going to your gran's this Friday because she sadly passed away. And I was like, oh no, I know, she told me on Wednesday she was going. I knew that, she told me that. And I was so calm and so chill, and it freaked my dad the fuck out, because I was like, oh no, she already told me that she was going away and she was dying. And that I wouldn't see her again, and I was so chill. And I never knew about that, but my dad had to stop. He told me that he basically stopped when I'm mid-sentence and just walked away to his room and just like burst out crying because he was freaked the fuck out. And I can vividly remember lying in my grand's bed and she was talking to me and she was saying, I can smell her perfume and stuff. I don't know how to explain it. But then I realised that never happened in real life. That must have been a dream or something I had, or something must have. I can vividly remember the dream or whatever it was. Do you know
That's
what
mental.
I mean?
And for your dad, must have been one of those moments of fuck, I'm not ready for having a kid.
See, that's one of the memories that start my life, were the first person who took care of me, because my mum and dad were heavy alcoholics back then. So going into my grand's weekend was an escape. She would teach me how to bake and all that. She would let me be whoever the fuck I wanted to be. And I think because at the age of 6, losing someone like that, like, my life changed and I never had anywhere to go at the weekends. I couldn't escape. So I was stuck in my bedroom, had Lion King on repeat, had like Anastasia on repeat, Anastasia. And I would always want to be the villain. So weird. I would always want to be that camp villain.
Just so funny. I had no idea about this until, because I love Disney villains. Disney villains for me made Disney. Like, I was always Team Scar, Team Maleficent. Just loved them. And I'd googled something, like, and it led me down a Google hole of how gay men particularly seem to always really love the villains.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god. And it was just saying, because they're not from like a heteronormative kind of background. They're not from like a mainstream sort of slot in society. They're often kind of outsiders, and you know, they're campy.
Always like against the world, because the proof that the world's,
because they've been wronged previously, you know. And I was just like, oh my god, I love it. And
it's such an interesting topic, why that's a thing. Because every gay kid will probably tell you, like, he wanted to be Scar, he didn't want to be Simba and stuff.
And they're definitely more interesting, the villains, though. I always think they're much more interesting.
I think, as well. I think that's why we...
Who's your favourite villain?
Scar. He was...
Sorry, what about you, Mel? Who would be your Disney villain of choice?
Oh, do you know the evil witch, but the stepmom from Snow White, with she wears like the hat,
the balaclava thing.
She's hot.
She's fucking fabulous. Mine's Maleficent.
Do you remember
Maleficent?
Maleficent. I love. But that's also because I've always said, like, Angelina Jolie is my favourite actress, like, of all time. She can just do everything.
Do you know what, though? Unpopular here, but they fucking butchered Maleficent for those movies, and I wanted to love them. Because I love Maleficent and I love Angelina Jolie. I stand hard for both of them. But Maleficent was cool because she was an unapologetic bitch. I literally watched the second one the other night and I was sat fuming. I said the only thing that can bring this back is if she turns into a fucking dragon. And she didn't. You're a phoenix.
I just love Angelina Jolie. Like, she's one of my favourites. Who's like, if you were to pick right now, like, your top actress or actor, just one, who you think is an icon, who's going to, like, stand the test of time?
Actor for me would be Leonardo DiCaprio. Of our time, anyway.
Yeah.
He's just amazing. He's so talented and he's fucking beautiful. And he's one of those people, I always think the mark of a good actor or actress is, like, when you watch them and you don't go, oh, there's Leonardo DiCaprio, you go, oh, there's character name. Whereas Nicolas Cage for me is not Nicolas Cage. I just see Nicolas Cage. That's always Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, in every movie. Do you know who else is, like, amazing right now? Her from, who's her name? Emma? No, it's not Emma. Her from Quiet Place. Emily Blunt. That's what I meant. Emily Blunt.
I think Susan Sarandon is quite big up there.
Yes.
My favourites.
Yeah, I love
her.
Yeah.
She's got some sort of, like, intensity about her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think she's just amazing, and I love her just, like, as a person as well. I think she really is one of those people that, like, uses her platform for the better. She just doesn't give a fuck. Like Jane Fonda as well, I think she's quite like that.
This is what happens when people who met on a media course try and do things. We just digress off into
I know, we even touched on one topic today. I got an interesting Reddit post sent to me by my friend John, and he came across this in the unpopular opinions thread on Reddit. And I'll put it up on screen, but it says, don't bring your kink into a pride parade. Pride parades are public and family-friendly places to express yourself and show love. I hate it when people show up half naked in a pup play suit and leather. There is children at these events, and there was loads of people agreeing. I'll put like some of them up on the screen, but there was loads of them agreeing. I would just want to get your guys' opinions on that whole sexualizing pride.
I think when it comes to the gay community, like in the first instance, because it was such an underground thing, because it was so frowned upon and it was so taboo, sex is a massive part of that because, well, I mean, it is about sex. It's about having sex with the same gender.
That's how they also communicated back then, because they weren't allowed to say stuff out loud and stuff, so they would do things in toilets and that without saying a word. It was just sex. That's how they shown their affection, whatever. Just they had no idea how to do it. So I think that's also why it's engraved in, is because we never had conversations and stuff. It was just all about, playing with each other and secret.
Yeah, like
in a way as well. I mean, sex. I'm not one who goes down the road of you can have a happy relationship with your partner without sex. I disagree with that. I think you can love somebody deeply, and I think you can like share a life with somebody. But I think if you're not sexually attracted, you're not doing sexual things, it's not much deeper than a friendship. Like I know, obviously, after years things wear out and everything. I think to be like a couple or whatever, it's sex that differentiates that from friendship to me. Like I could move in with my best friend, we wouldn't fuck, because we're not attracted to each other. She's my best friend, but like I couldn't move in with someone that I was sexually attracted with and like not have sex. You know what I mean? So I guess I think it links up. I think it's stupid to say, "Oh, your sexuality is nothing to do with sex."
That's exactly what I was thinking, Claire. Like at the heart of it is your sexuality. It is about sexual attraction and all that sort of thing. And like I don't think to shy away from that is very good. I think that's just watering down who we are. Sex has always been it's been a fundamental part of the gay community since the beginning. And I think that is quite a harsh truth that a lot of straight people and things have to confront. Like it isn't this little rainbow unicorn world. It is about different sexual subcultures and things. And I don't think we should shy away from it. But also, I don't think that is the be all and end all of our community.
My only view on it is, see, as long as no holes are shown, cool. Like, to simplify it down, as long as I see no penetration on the public street, and I wouldn't want to see penetration between anybody on the public street. So that's not gay, straight, bi, pan, anything.
Right, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's what they're getting at as well, or if they're just focusing on the kink. I don't know if they're talking about like the whole sexualizing thing, like, because I know there's plenty of fucking gay videos on XTube and stuff of gay guys doing stuff at pride parades and stuff publicly in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And I do think that's wrong. I'm not.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I'm not all for that. And I actually do have, I don't know, I have a strange relationship with sex and gay men. I don't know how to explain it. But I've been celibate for what now? Nearly fucking 6 years. And I do have a like bad.
By choice?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough then. I'll take away my pity and look.
Because I weirdly see what they're talking about. I'm in the end of I'm kind of sick to death of gay men being so sexually like everything is sex. Like, and it's a harsh reality that gay men, they may not agree with us when they hear it, but it's a fucking harsh reality that an app had to get created for us to have 5-minute like hookups that quickly, because we are so, everything seems to just fucking evolve around sex, and I think I'm just sick of it. So
do you think it's a bit of a toxic masculinity thing goes alongside that, of like, regardless of how much you maybe don't, this might come off really like I'm going to offend people, I don't mean it that way, but like, do you think there's an element of, traditionally you have women moaning that men are after sex all the time, you have women, oh god, he won't leave me alone, do you think it's just a male-female thing that a lot of men are more
I think
wanting sex, and then unfortunately it's become this kind of boiling pot that then people just relate that of like, well, clearly all gay men just want to have sex with each other.
Well, you also put on like the whole like we can't help that men do have a lot of testosterone.
Testosterone.
They are very like horny creatures, just because from biology, like their whole thing is to mate, like, and create more life and be fucking like, is it
Virile
pack
sperm
leader and stuff?
monsters.
Yeah. So that was a form of survival. Like, it created more of you to become like the fucking like leader, if you know what I mean, because you're so it's in our like history and our blood and stuff. And I mean, there's obviously gay men out there who aren't interested in sex as much as, like, they have the same opinions and feelings as me. Like, we don't have to have sex all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be focused around sex. So yeah, I do get that, but it feels like I'm saying, I'm not saying it is, but it feels like the majority of gay men is just focused around sex. And I think that's why when I see stuff like that, like someone's dressed up as a pup or whatever, I'm thinking, well, you could also just meet your pup friends in a club or at a location. And we're normal people in the parade. Like,
the pup thing is a very specific one, and that's always one that I see at pride parades and stuff. And it's actually one that I had my middle son ask me about. He's like, "Why are there guys in leather dressed like dogs?" And I'm quite if you're old enough to ask, you're old enough for age appropriate answers. So I just said, like, I think I said something like, he would have been about 10 at the time. I just said, "Oh, some people like doing that," and it was like, it was enough. I didn't need to go into
detail
sex behind it. I didn't need to. And I feel like with things like that, as long as within the pride setting, I feel like, because of just the fact of it being a public arena, it being a public space, and you're sharing it with people, just a case of like common decency. I guess it's don't go too explicit, but it's okay to like represent.
I'm also going to play devil's advocate, because I just realised the whole, like, gay men do get the stereotype of always being around sex. It's always sex, like that way. But how are we supposed to get away from that stereotype if gay men at pride parades are dressed in sexual gear and stuff like that? Does that make sense?
Totally.
It just clicked in my head that I was like, oh wait, because then people are seeing this, like straight people maybe just walking by and be like, oh, of course they're dressed like that because they're gay.
Do you know what though? Like, I suppose you could almost contrast that with something like the slut walk. Yeah. Where, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a sort of feminist march. I don't know a huge amount about it, but it was like set up, and it's to sort of say, you can dress how you want, you can wear as little or as much as you want, and you still shouldn't just be automatically considered a focus of like sexual violence or sexual enforcement or whatever. And on that one, you can kind of say, well, a woman walking down the street in a pair of pants and a bra, or walking down topless, she's not going to spend all her life walking around in her bra and pants topless. She's just representing an idea and a sort of something that's part of her. Just like someone in like a pup suit, or someone doing, I don't know, BDSM kind of clothing at a pride parade, they don't cut out their kitchen mopping in a pup suit, but possibly sometimes. But like, they don't nip down to Tesco like that. I guess it's just another way of saying like, what we do is valid and it's fine.
Yeah, like, that is totally in a way as well. They get one time a year, like, because they're having to hide this away, like this whole lifestyle they have. It's hidden away in the shadows or in like behind locked doors. It is a good thing. Like, once a year they get to be free and show people who the fuck they are and be who they are proudly. If you know what I mean, they don't have to hide behind locked doors and stuff.
And even though it is a sexual thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be that sex is a thing to be ashamed of. So that is quite interesting. I think with the sort of sexual thing as well, it's what I like to call the Andorra effect. So there's like this kind of book by Max Frisch, and it's this little boy, and he's not Jewish, but he gets told you're Jewish, and so he starts behaving like the way people stereotype Jews to behave, even though he's not Jewish at all. So I think that could actually come into play with this type of thing, whereby gay men are told you are promiscuous, you are very sexual, that's all you care about, and therefore because we are fed that sort of narrative, they start to kind of act like that because that's
what's expected
of them. Totally, exactly.
I think people should be able to show themselves in any way that doesn't go against like legalities and public decency.
And it's about sex positivity as well. Like, obviously, you're not performing sexual acts, but I think there's such a stiff upper lip kind of thing when it comes to sex. And I think it would benefit us if we were more sex positive, just in general, as a society.
It's what made all of us.
Yeah,
exactly.
That brings me to the next topic, actually, where I found like this study thing that said lesbians are more accepted than gay men around the world. Study finds the study explored attitudes towards non-heterosexual men and women in 23 countries and found gay men are disliked more than lesbians in every country. And this was conducted by 3 New York University psychologists, and it was published in December issue for Journal Social Psychology and Personality Science, if that means anything. I mean, there's a lot of countries where it's just not accepted at all.
Where no one's accepted.
But
I was really surprised when you sent me that, to be honest. Like, when I read it and then thought more into it and, fell down a Google hole, it kind of made sense what they were saying. I genuinely was quite surprised because I think you see a lot more gay male representation in media than you do for lesbians. Like, I think you see a lot more of, but it is all stereotype. It's all the flouncy gay friend.
Yeah, do you think that's a show pony? Like, they use it?
That kind of thing. Yeah. So I was thinking, I'm quite surprised at that. But then when you look at it, it's like, yeah, but that flouncy gay guy, all the stereotypes that are so widely pushed are so very against the sort of gender norm of macho man.
Yeah.
And people don't like that.
Okay, I think the kind of main part of the issue is with the idea of feminisation. So in heterosexual society, there's obviously the kind of patriarchal sort of ideals. So like the man is better than the woman and the woman is less than. So therefore when a man starts to display this sort of femininity, he becomes kind of less than as well. So it's this issue with being feminine. So something that I always think of is the way that straight men sometimes treat women as the object, and people have an issue with the idea of gay men objectifying other men and feminising other men. So it's this idea is that like feminine is weak and it's wrong and it's less than, which is why I think people have a tendency to disagree with like feminine gay men. However, with lesbians, they're seen as sexual objects quite a lot of the time. So either as a lesbian, I don't feel like I'm particularly visible in society as much as gay men. That's within like LGBT sort of events, or just in the wider context of society, I don't feel particularly visible. When I do feel visible, it's usually because people sexualise us. And I feel like the acceptance might come from that sort of sexualisation of us.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, the amount of times I've seen things like online that's complete kind of queer bashing, and they're like, "Oh, but still watch lesbian porn."
Yeah, exactly.
Still would. I was honestly so surprised, but then I think the more you think about it, it makes sense. And like what you're saying, Mel, about it's almost a kind of demonization of men giving up their space as a man. Like,
it's almost like, why
you're
would
not
you
a man
not
unless
want
you're
to be a man? Why would you not want to go for vaginas and stuff? Why are you going against
when your dick at everything going?
I think it's also a shock to some men that you would purposely choose to go against the grain. Like, I don't want to get a woman pregnant. I don't want to go have sex with women and stuff. I want to go with men. That's such a shock to them because all they know is, like, through history, if you know what I mean, is all they know is what I was saying earlier about, what you call that, make kids? Procreate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, in a way, it always comes back to stuff like that because, but then again, that's bullshit because in the history books and stuff, gay was seemed to be much more accepted back then, especially in Egypt and stuff.
Yeah. Shit. I think in history, like, people in a position of power have always had that sort of, it's not about sex, it's not about love, it's about power. So if you have someone, I guess, if you go with the, women are lesser, then having a man who's your equal, who you then still have power over, makes you the ultimate.
Oh God, that makes complete sense.
I think it's just a case of people accepting lesbians because they're not as vocal or not as sort of in your face as your stereotypical sort of representation that you get with gay men.
I think so, and I think as well it's maybe not because they're not as vocal or not as in your face, because I think it's because they're not allowed to be, if that makes sense. So the gay culture, when you think of LGBT culture, you think of a gay bar or whatever, you think it's all kind of for gay males. And lesbians aren't really a part of that. So if we're not really visible in that, then we're maybe not as visible in the outside sphere as well. Yeah. So maybe it is
therefore less offensive to people who are going to deem being gay as offensive to them, because there's not as much visibility, perhaps. They're less bothered about it.
Like, have the whole stereotype of being more in your face. They're much more, the scene is more, like, the stereotype is being louder, flamboyant, like, here I am, like, a presence in a room, if you know what I mean. Whereas lesbians are known to be more, like, I feel the chill, grounded, is the complete different personality of a gay guy, the stereotype of a gay guy, because a gay guy is supposed to be loud and take charge of a room, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think
funny, because we were actually saying about like stereotypes, and when we were talking kind of about discussing another time like representation in the media, you can hammer off like the stereotypes of gay men in movies and TV. You've got the flamboyant gay friend, you've got the grounded couple who are trying to adopt or have a straight friend have a baby for them. Do you know what I mean? You've got this, but there's not really, I mean, other than, I don't know, it's hard to spring off straight away a lesbian stereotype that comes from the media. So it's like,
yeah, I mean,
there is less visibility.
Like, you've got the kind of dungarees, Doc Marten, shaved head lesbians.
Yeah.
They know how to fix everything and stuff. They're always saying, like, lesbian stereotype is, like, they'll fix your plumbing or whatever. Like, they're very handsy and, like, and they also, that the stereotype is, like, they mate for life, like, all that kind of stuff. Where there's
none of those stereotypes are in your face, though, which is quite telling.
And I think with lesbians as well, we don't really get taken seriously. So I think with gay males, it's a fear almost. So it's like something that always comes into my head is with straight men, when they find out is gay, it's like, oh, backs to the wall, as if this gay man is going to overpower them. So that comes across as like this kind of fear, like this fear against their kind of masculinity being disrupted or whatever. But with lesbians, it's this fear of kind of, well, it's not really a fear at all. It's like the lesbian is the masculine force, but they actually can be feminized because they're women and because they're weaker. And all these lesbians, they're not actually gay at all. Lesbians aren't actually gay at all. It's just that they've never had a good dicking down before.
They've not found the right man. Yeah. They've just not met him yet.
Yeah, there's some sort of issue. They've been abused as a child, or there's some sort of issue that's preventing them from being with a man. There's this sort of thing in place that prevents them from being with a man. It's really weird.
Think about it, always just making them weaker. Again, it's just seeing them as weaker. It's making them weaker by saying, well, they've just not had a good dicking, because, of course, like, a woman couldn't have her own choice of maybe she doesn't want a fucking dicking ever in her life. So it's always basically taking that decision away from, like, lesbians and basically deciding already that they are weak.
There's so much when you go into these kind of things that on the South Coast, like, I don't even think about when initially reading the stuff that we're going to be talking about or whatever. It's so interesting, like, back and forth.
Like, you start opening your minds more when you're having these conversations.
So much.
Yeah, we've all got different bits to add and we can bounce off each other. It's really, it's remarkable. I like it a lot.
I think we have a good dynamic between the three of us, because we're all three very kind of willing to listen to other people's opinions on things, but also quite firmly, I think we're all quite firm in our own feelings about things. So, like, it's a quite safe space to just say what you think and know you're not out to hurt anybody or upset anybody, but you can take in other people's notions and opinions and ideas and listen and learn.
Self-awareness is the utmost quality to have. It's the most important quality to have, the ability to kind of change and develop and like evaluate everything that you're hearing and critically thinking. It's the most important thing to have, and I think we're all kind of learning to do that just now with the Black Lives Matter thing.
So guys, we're going to do like a new weekly segment where Mel can share a political issue that's going on or has gone on that she can open our brains and eyes to that we may not have known about before. But we're going to let
She's definitely our political correspondent, and neither me nor Scott have the knowledge, vocabulary, or wisdom to discuss politics the way that Mel does. So.
Okay, doke. So today, following on from last week's episode, we talked a little bit about the Section 28. So how it was, I think it was 30 years ago, implemented as a way of kind of silencing gay people. But you can listen to that in last week's podcast. However, we're going to talk about the kind of new Section 28, which is to do with transgender people. And this issue's come up quite a lot in our podcasts, whereby to summarise, kind of trans people are becoming the way that gay people were treated. And this is kind of a good example of that. So basically, during this kind of COVID-19 quarantine, there's been a lot in the way of transgender rights being repealed, being kind of disturbed. For example, in the UK, the USA, Hungary, Poland, lots of different countries at the moment, there's this issue with transgender people, and it's coming up a lot. So trans healthcare in the UK, basically it's kind of under threat at the moment. So it's been described as the biggest attack of trans rights in modern UK history and a successor to Thatcher's Section 28. So it's this woman called Liz Truss, Conservative MP, and there's these three important principles following a public consultation in 2018 about the Gender Recognition Act. So the three principles are as follows. So it's protection of single-sex spaces. Trans people are to live without fear of persecution, but this also includes maintaining checks and balances, which is really ambiguous. And the last one is the under 18s are protected from decisions that could potentially affect them negatively. So some points of note, first of all, to do with this kind of conference, is that the committee is led by a woman called Caroline Noakes, and she notoriously voted against same-sex marriage in 2013. As well as that, this consultation took place in 2018. The government still actually haven't published the responses from this. So basically, they're saying that young people are to be protected from something that could change them negatively, and that basically means restricting trans youth access to transition-related healthcare, which I can't actually get my head around. It's interestingly, actually, in the UK, people under the age of 18 have the human right to consent to medical procedures. So think of that in terms of like vaccinations.
Going into that, well, I went at age 15 myself and got circumcised. I never told my parents and stuff, right? So if I can do that, I knew what I wanted to do in my body. If I'm like cutting up my body, if people want to say stuff like that, then I think at the same time, trans people know who they are at that age. If I knew I wanted to be circumcised, I knew in my head, I knew why, I knew all the reasons. I never jumped into it. So they need to start giving trans individuals, especially younger ones, more credit. They're not fucking just waking up overnight and...
I think that's it, is you saying they're trans individuals. It is the case for every person, as with every aspect of your health, physical or mental, it is an individual thing. You cannot turn around and say every trans person who transitions will be happy with their transition for the rest of their life. There are people who detransition because they realise, no, wait a minute, I was wrong. And at least they're then in that position where they know they've done, as opposed to the amount of lives that are lost through no intervention and no healthcare, no processing of, right, this person, this individual. The amount of suicides that can be prevented by allowing people that space to make their choice.
But they say
it's insane to say that.
The amount of illegal drugs trans individuals have to take all over like the UK, USA is especially big for it because they can't get it. They are gonna still get the drugs, and they have no idea really what they're putting into their body, but they know they need to transition, so they're gonna take them anyway. So it's more dangerous to withhold legal drugs from hospitals and doctors and stuff. It's gonna do more damage to individuals in the long run, because if they want to transition and they know truly they're going to transition, they are going to get those pills no matter what.
That's a really interesting point, Scott. Because even if you're anti-trans, then I mean you can't exactly be anti that, because that then it's dangerous. It's like people who are anti-abortion, you can't insist on banning it. People are going to do it anyway. However, it's going to be unsafe. And if you're so pro-life, then you wouldn't want that to happen. It just makes sense.
You know, by putting through laws like what you're talking about, Mel, it's insane. So to say to a person under 18, right, at this point in your life, we will not do anything to help you with this. And then age 17, that person kills themselves. They have nowhere else. Like, you see it, you read about it, you hear about it all the time. It's directly hypocritical. Things like this can never be a blanket. It has to be case by case. It has to be individual by individual.
People who don't really give a shit about women's rights until trans rights come up, who say the sort of J.K. Rowling thing of the past couple of days as well.
You have the right to be a woman unless you're a trans woman.
Like the trans women invading female spaces as men or whatever.
Is she a TERF then?
She is a TERF.
You taught me that.
Same, you taught me that one as well.
Yeah.
I've played it on others.
So she's a TERF.
People like J.K. Rowling, I think, having a voice
and a
to
platform.
put these, it's very difficult because you have people who grew up writing about her in the My Favourite Author thing in school. You have people who grew up like absolutely fandom is enormous for Harry Potter and everything that she's come out with. It's really, really, I think it's really difficult to marry up with her voicing such, to me, inhumane opinions.
I feel as though this past year or something, she's changed or she's shown her true colours. I don't know if it's because she's been hanging around with rich people for far too long. Like before that, she was broke. She was like dealing with people. Like
I was going to say, she's got her money. She gives no fucks on anything.
Yeah.
And
now she's probably hanging around with most people who have that kind of money are right-wing idiots and stuff because they own oil and all that crap. So I don't know if they're just feeding into our brain because she has changed, I feel like, for the past year or two. She's trending for all the wrong reasons.
A lot of the time, she and others that are really against transgender rights, particularly male to female transgender, is that she's defending lesbians, and I personally don't understand it. As a lesbian, I will always fight for transgender rights. It's human rights. But she's not even a lesbian. She doesn't know what it's like to be a lesbian.
She doesn't have experience. She's never lived that. It's
just an excuse to be anti-trans.
It's so hard because everybody should have a voice and everyone should have a platform. But fuck, when you see people with a position of like sway over people use that for something that you just think it's so against being human and having compassion.
Just be kind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nothing, just be a nice person.
Stay the fuck out of other people's business and their own bodies. Like, it's nothing to fucking do with you. What people are doing with their bodies. Shut the fuck up. It's that simple. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening to the Queer Opinions podcast. Stay tuned next week for more. Cancel culture is going to be like the main topic next week, I think. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Thank you guys for listening and join us again. Oh, and we all keep forgetting to do it, but socials.
Oh yeah, all our social links are down below, guys. All our social links are down below, guys. And links to the charities for Black Lives Matter is also down below, so be sure to check that out.
Don't treat people like shit.
And wash your hands, bitches.
Wash your hands.
Queer Opinions. Queer Opinions.
The podcast.
Wow.
Love, relationships, hot topics.
LGBTQ+.
Gay culture.
Scott McGoldrick with Claire.
With Claire.
And Mel.
And Mel.
Wow. It's just love.
It's just love.
It's just love. It's just love.